On tonight's Cover One Buffalo podcast, we have real football to discuss and are joined by the Road Graders' own Cole Jackson. But first, our guys, Handsome Jack.
Broadcasting live to Bills Mafia Worldwide with Greg Tompsett and Aaron Quinn.
Welcome to the NFL. Doesn't matter what's happened before today. Today's a brand new day. It's a brand new season.
Your number one podcast for objective Buffalo Bills coverage. No matter where you are, we've got you covered.
Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You are joining your host, Greg Tompsett, along with my partner in crime, Aaron Quinn. Aaron, I love our friend Bruce Nolan's shtick. He's got like 15 different moments during the year when football is back. This is football is back as football is back gets. We have a real, actual NFL game that counts tomorrow night, and we are about to preview Bills Ravens with our dear friend Cole Jackson. Football is back.
Football is indeed back. Yeah, you're right. Especially for us coming up, and it was a weird one here with Labor Day and school starting. I know we were just talking to Cole about kids starting school here offline a little bit, and then all of a sudden it's like, holy cow, it's Wednesday. We have a show. Luckily, it is week one, and there's like nothing to study other than like who's new on the Ravens. Like we know the Ravens are one of the last teams we played in terms of film study and things like that, but there's nothing here to study. But yeah, no, football is officially back when you and I get to sit here and bring a great guest on here early in the season and talk about a big matchup. I'm just bummed, Greg, that this is the first matchup of the year. I know the NFL probably likes it, other fans probably like it, but I'd like to see these two teams once they're a little more warmed up, come November or something when it matters a little more. And that's probably the only disappointing thing about this one.
Yeah, I mean, without further ado, let's bring him right on. Our friend, he's been on before, originator and founder of the Road Graders with Cole Jackson. Cole, how do you feel deciding home field advantage for the AFC in week one?
Yeah, no, seriously, I completely agree with that sentiment.
Super
it
weird.
Is disappointing, and I feel like this is kind of back to back for us because we lost to KC in 2023, and then we opened last year with KC. Turnaround against Las Vegas. This year we open against Buffalo, who beat us last year, and then turn around and we have Cleveland next week. So it feels like a little bit more of the same. It's not my favorite debut.
Can't we get like a Titans or
well, didn't you guys get KC late last year? Wasn't it November? It was
late last year.
It was late,
which was a great matchup, like one of the best games of the regular season.
That's when you want it. And also, like what I hate about this week, the wonkiness of week one, where you guys had a wonky finish in that KC game.
Yeah, Isaiah Likely's toe.
Yeah. And that's the stuff that I hate, especially in a primetime week one, where it's like week one's wonky enough, and then you get into a primetime spot. That's the last thing I need, just like looming over our head all year is like a loss by a toe. That could be the difference between home field and not, or the difference between something substantial, meaningful or not here as we get towards the end of the season. I'd hate that to be impactful.
I will say after last year's Ronnie Stanley getting 5 illegal formation penalties, I'm glad it's not on the Thursday. I never want to experience what rule did they focus on this year? Because I think it's the taunting. There will be 3 taunting calls tomorrow night in that Philly Dallas game, and it's just. I just can't with
I hate
it.
when they have to make an example of something. It's dumb.
And when you go back through that game against KC, those first few series, they actually ended up converting first down. So it's not like it was detrimental, but it was just annoying from a viewership perspective.
So before we get into specific matchups and some of the stuff that we'll dive into, just give us, kind of the headspace of the Ravens fans right now, because I think it's so similar to Buffalo in that the idea of knowing you're good enough to win a championship and the frustration of not only not winning it but not even getting to the Super Bowl, and that you start to get those creeping doubts of like, oh my God, is it ever going to happen? Like what's needed? These two teams, I think I tried to do a rough count. It depends on which stage of the season you count. I think I looked at something like 37 returning starters between the two teams. It's a ridiculous amount of returning talent for two incredibly talented teams, and both of them just facing this idea of like, we have to finally get over the hump. We got to be healthy at the right time. We got to make these little tweaks, but not change too much. Where are Ravens fans' heads at?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's just more of the same, right? It's we're not going to defeat that narrative around Lamar Jackson until he's able to get over the hump. And if I had told you when we did our preview last year before the divisional round game that, like, if you had been like, the outcome if Baltimore holds Josh Allen to 127 yards passing and 20 yards rushing with a long of 7, I'd be like, we obviously blew you guys out. Like, there's no doubt, right? And it's more of the same with the Baltimore Ravens, where they beat themselves. But the other, on the other side, like, Buffalo played winning football in that game. They won the trenches on both sides of the ball. They protected the football, which was the most critical thing. Baltimore didn't punt. They didn't punt, and they only scored 25 points. That's what's crazy to me. So it's definitely a tough one. But I honestly, like, I almost feel like we're, the Toronto Maple Leafs in hockey, where it's like the season kind of starts. It's hard to say it in football, but like the season kind of starts in January. I'm done getting into the hype. I'm done arguing with fans. We can't say anything until we start to prove it in the playoffs. And I think that's where a lot of fans are at, because none of this matters. None of the MVP stuff matters. Like, no one cares anymore. I don't care. I didn't care last year. I don't think I engaged in one MVP debate because I just didn't care. It's all about the playoffs. And until the Baltimore Ravens get over that hump, all of this personal success, all this regular season success, just quite frankly doesn't mean a whole lot.
Kind of in that vein, where is the fan base, where even just like the media sense on, here in Buffalo, you can only make so many excuses for falling short with Josh Allen in his prime. And that clock feels like it's ticking. We're not there yet, but it's starting to be like, okay, wow, he is. They just did something this offseason where they showed all of his pictures from when he was a rookie to now. And they're like, on the directions, like, oh, actually, he has been here a while. Like, where's the fan base at of, if it doesn't happen this year, like, when is it big changes that need to be made so that you ensure that you are going to get done when you have one of the top 3 elite quarterbacks in the league?
Yeah, I thought it was a couple of years ago, mostly after that 2023 loss to the Chiefs. And, it's wild to think that after losing in the AFC Championship game, where, it really never felt like Baltimore was quite in that game. Even if they don't fumble, Zay doesn't fumble on the 1 yard line. It just felt like KC had command of that game and they would have just marched the field. But I really think where you'd have to start is with the coaching, because it does get nauseating that, and there's no excuse for turnovers. And we all know, Jims and Joes versus the X's and the O's and the importance of execution. There's no doubt about it. But the Ravens do routinely outcoach themselves when it comes to these playoff games, like getting into that matchup against KC and they ran the ball 8 times. Like, it just, stuff like that, it's hard to kind of overcome. And even some of the stuff last year, I don't know how they were dominating Pittsburgh the week before with an option run game, and they didn't run one option with Lamar Jackson. Like, it's just little things like this that becomes very exhausting from a coaching perspective. And you can't just fire the players. So, like, it becomes a question of where do you start with the changes. John Harbaugh's been here 20 years, feels like 20 years. But it's almost 17 years. It's actually getting close to 20. It was 2008.
17 is a lot in the NFL, man.
Yeah, it's a long
time. Belichick's gone. That's by far the longest, right?
I think Tomlin was there longer.
I think Tomlin longer. I mean, Sean McDermott's like the 3rd or 4th longest tenured.
It's up there now. It's crazy.
I thought Mike Tomlin was like 06, but
it's wild.
It's crazy. But like, how do you balance?
Was 07, so Tomlin's got 1 year on John Harbaugh.
I guess Pittsburgh's sort of in the same boat, right? Of like, probably not in the same way because they don't have the elite QB, but like, and it's a constant philosophical question that Greg and I are trying to deal with all the time, is like, where do you balance this? Like, there is success happening, and success 28 other teams would love to get their hands on. But you haven't hit the success that 3 or 4 teams besides us are getting their hands on. I don't know where the balance is. I don't know. It's like, yeah, okay, I'm also ready to get rid of McDermott or Harbaugh or Tomlin or whoever it is. But not knowing that so many other teams struggle without that type of consistency.
And we've been here, right? Like from 2008, 2009 to 2012, when the Ravens beat the 49ers, it was very much the same. It was behind a young Joe Flacco, where Joe was that guy that he was the opposite of Lamar. He
elite? That was the question.
Yeah.
Right?
But he would put up mediocre regular season numbers, but in the playoffs, he never really choked. He played winning football, and then he just went silly. Like what he did in that playoff run was just like, why can't you do that 16 times?
Yeah.
So it was such an interesting inverse of the two, and then obviously having Ray and Ed, and it was a completely different situation for the Ravens. But but they choked a bunch of times. They choked against the Steelers in 2010. That was the Houshmandzadeh game. They choked against the Patriots with the Billy Cundiff kick. So like, we've gone through the heartbreak, and then, everything clicks and you win, and then you don't care anymore. And that's where I think Buffalo and Baltimore are. If one of these teams wins the Super Bowl this year, the last 4 years, who gives a shit, right? Like, and that's, success is the ultimate, and that's why, like, when you look at the teams that have won the Super Bowl over the last 15 years, a lot of those are owned by Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. So it's a tough one to win. And
Harry Roseman got a couple in there too.
Yeah, he's got 2 of them, right? Yeah. So
it's where a lot of those famous reactions come from, like Steve Young getting eliminated by the Cowboys over and over again, and Manning getting eliminated by Brady and the Patriots over and over again, and Drew Brees finally getting there, and these guys that Elway before those guys, that like the reason that those were such a big deal is because they were so close so many times and so good, and it didn't change the fact that they were all like MVP caliber quarterbacks and all known even before the championship that they're going to be Hall of Famers and like being in that position, but that ultimately it took finally getting there to do it. And I think that's what Bills and Ravens fans have at least to hold on to, is that I just rattle off 5 all-time great quarterbacks that were later than where these two are in their careers when they first got their first one. So like, there's obviously plenty of precedent that it's not too late. It's not something that I have Ralph Wilson here just adding some salt to the wound.
Thanks, Ralph.
Greg, this might be more of a question for you since you're much older than me. I wanted to put that in there. You mentioned that like those other guys had streaks, but have we also ever been in a time as Ravens and Bills QBs, and knowing that you need elite QB to get to this next level? Can you guys think of a time maybe in the 90s when it was like Kelly, Marino, Moon, Elway, but when there was more of those elite QBs in one conference all competing to get there? To like, that becomes my biggest concern. Isn't like McDermott, it's you have to go on a playoff run, but there's also Lamar and Burrow and Mahomes who can all go on a playoff run at the same time. That's my concern.
Probably that late 2000s window where Roethlisberger got really good. You still had Manning and Brady. You had Phillip Rivers. You had Carson Palmer. Like, you had like even like the 4th and 5th guys were still really, really good. But you had those 3 at the top that you still have 3 Hall of Famers. Yeah, at the top. And the guy, again, Roethlisberger, I think is, probably isn't the tier of Mahomes, Allen, and Lamar, but still multiple championships and Hall of Fame. Like, it's hard to take that away. And then still with like Rivers and like, Palmer had that moment and things like that where he had a near MVP season. So there are other flashes at a 4th and 5th, but yeah, it's not often. Like, you probably would need, I don't know who, I'd have to think through who the 3rd was when you had like Aikman and Young and those guys. But on the other side, you did have like Marino, Kelly, Esiason.
I think you have to go back a ways where it was like, Elway, Kelly, like, because I think we're in a conversation now with Lamar, Allen, Mahomes. I'm not ready to put Burrow there, but I guess you can.
So,
Of like these,
Burrow's
some of these,
an excellent
this might
player.
be some.
I think he's fourth, but excellent.
Yeah, it might not be like long term the best quarterback play we've ever seen, but in terms of short term talent, this might be the best quarterback play of all time, like that we're ever been witness to.
It's in the
It's
argument.
definitely the most dynamic. Like it's not even close in terms of what these guys can do, and especially from an entertainment perspective. Like that's what I found so exhausting about the Lamar Josh Allen debates. Like just shut up and enjoy what we get to watch week to week.
Yeah.
I talked about this last time I came on. Like it was like that picture of the Crips and the Bloods putting the red and blue handkerchiefs up. Like, can we just do that and enjoy good football, please?
Just watch it. So I missed it for opposite reasons last year, Cole. I didn't get into the MVP debate because I was so sure that, like, hey, I thought genuinely that no team was as dependent on a single player as Josh Allen was with the Buffalo Bills' success. And I was like, to me, like if you remove those players or if you switch this guy with that guy, I don't think anyone does better with the team we have here. And I think he would do as well or better than anybody else in their situation. And that, like, to me, that was there. But on paper, I thought Lamar had a better season. So I was like, I'm not going to do this because I think the
value
metrics and the
most withstanding. Like I think Lamar had the better season statistically production wise, but I think Lamar Jackson had a lot more talent around him than Josh Allen did.
Yeah. So
and Josh had the 4th and 2 BKC play. He had the moment.
There's the narrative stuff.
Yeah.
And you get the...
And that's why Lamar won the year before, because I didn't think Lamar should have won in 2023. I thought Christian McCaffrey should have won, personally.
McCaffrey, heck, you could have made an argument for Dak. Like, he was like 12 and 4,
could have made an argument
top seed and great statistical case. And so, yeah, it's so weird year after year.
It came down to
that
things. Christmas game. That's what everybody said sold the voters. Yes. They said it was Lamar beating, Brock, and not even just beating, like we smashed them. And destroyed them. Yeah, and then they just had a crazy December. They destroyed Miami. I think he put up 50 on them. That becomes a narrative game and not so much about the actual merits of what creates value. It's more about what storyline did the media follow through. Like, what a dumb way to do it. Anyway.
So let's get into this game itself. Aaron, do you want to go first with the Ravens?
I was going to say, you guys are talking Lamar, so you might as well segue.
I'll jump right
from.
So obviously, I think one of the pieces when I talked about the returning starters and the different case there, you guys are returning 10 out of 11 on offense, and that any of the other spots where there were changes, you're still having known entities step in. So Makari is lost, but you're still bringing in a known entity that was already playing for the team, now starting at guard and having the established pieces. They're still adding in a DeAndre Hopkins, seemingly healthy. I know right now there's a little question with Patrick Ricard and Isaiah Likely, and obviously the versatility to be able to pound the rock is always going to be there, but to be able to pass out of some of those bigger sets with guys like that, create more flexibility. So we'll see what that does matchup wise. But where are you at on what the next wrinkle is? What are the things? I know Monken really has unlocked in a level of efficiency with Lamar's passing that we just hadn't seen before, but without losing any of the dynamic element of the run game. Do you think there's more, wide open, or is it going to continue to be like, hey, we know what we've got here. We've got a freight train in the backfield, and if you key on him, our guy can pull it back and beat you around the corner. Do you think they're going to stick to what was, arguably the most efficient offense in the league last year?
Yeah, I think it sounds like Patrick Ricard's going to miss this game. He hasn't practiced since August 9th. I think we were expecting him to practice today, and him not practicing is a big blow. He could turn around and turn in a limited practice tomorrow. So tomorrow will be a lot more telling, but I'm definitely concerned there. They'll have to elevate practice squad fullback Lucas Scott because they are down likely won't play for sure. Probably won't see him till week 3. They have Charlie Kolar that's going to be kind of that 12 personnel back or tight end. And I think that helps, but not having the flexibility to go from 11 with Hopkins in the mix with Bateman and Zay to 12 with Andrews and Likely, I think that really hurts the versatility. But the wrinkle that I'm hoping to see early in the season is particularly running out of lighter packages with the 3 wide receivers on the field. I think that's something that Derrick Henry does extremely well, especially when you mix in the option run game, because of, if you can create those 6-man boxes and then you're drawing linebacker eyes to Lamar Jackson, I think it really creates opportunities for Derrick Henry to get into the second level, and then that's when he does his best work. I think I'm worried about the offensive line. Daniel Falele, he's been probably the most polarizing player on this team through the preseason. Didn't have an overly great preseason when he did play. There was never really any true competition at right guard. He just kind of had it locked down. Andrew Voorhees on the flip, where he kind of got benched last year for McCary, but he looked really clean in the preseason, and so I'm excited to see him. But there's still a little bit of instability, and it's what's kind of the struggle there is that right side of the O-line. Daniel Falele, Roger Rosengarten as run blockers. Rosengarten is more of a finesse pass blocker. He's basically a left tackle playing right tackle, in the sense that he's kind of a pass protection first guy. At Washington, he did Michael Penix's blind side as a tackle because he was left-handed. So that was kind of one of the advantages, was kind of getting that tackle duo that would really improve their pass protection, but they've really struggled run blocking. And so that's where you kind of lose some of that advantage. And when I went back, the first video I did on Monday on my channel was going back to the run game in Buffalo last year, because in the first quarter, Henry had I think he finished with 5 yards in the first quarter rushing. And a lot of it was just Jones and Oliver just eating the A gap and B gap consistently, one gapping, shooting field, using gap penetration. And then that's just creating opportunities for your second level defenders to come in and clean up tackles. So I think they need to be prepared for that. But that's why I'm like, how do you watch that as an offensive coordinator and not make that big adjustment to getting the quarterback involved in the run game? Because that instantly draws everyone's eyes, because now you're reading the mesh point on every play. So I thought that was a huge missed opportunity. But I do hope we see some of that light 11. I think that will be, especially when you look at the Bills' corner depth, I think that's probably where they're the most vulnerable right now, especially with Trey White looking like he may not go. Obviously, Taron Johnson and Christian Benford are super solid, but it looks like that other outside corner spot might be a spot where they can, kind of exploit. Cole Bishop being a little bit of a newer, lesser known quantity, could be, another area where they're able to exploit the deep ball. So again, I think that 11 personnel would work out a lot better for them.
So obviously it's similar to asking hey, how do you beat Josh Allen? So trying to figure out how to get to Lamar. He's great against the blitz. He's not, it's, obviously Aaron brings it up all the time. Every quarterback's worse when they get pressured, but he's still pretty darn good, even when he gets pressured. His escapability is terrifying. So you're constantly in the muddle rush, the spy rush. You can't really pin your ears back the same as you normally would. I'm now of the belief that I just want to throw variance at him and just say, hey, I don't want, I know you can matriculate the ball down the field. I know you can kill us with death by 1,000 paper cuts, and you're so efficient that if we just try to hope on turnovers and bend but don't break, you will break us. I almost want to flip it the other way and say, you want to know what? Screw it. Let's try to force a couple of the turnovers and increase the variance, increase the blitz rate, just to say, hey, if we get home on a couple of those, that's your best chance to get the strip sack. That's the best chance to get, it's not often, but he will throw one up here or there, trying to get out of those things. And that if you let him, he's now too efficient in the pocket that even if you do the muddle rush and kind of keep him there, he's now improved his accuracy so much that he'll get you that way. When you're kind of hoping on what they do, is it you're hoping that they try to throw that and say, hey, we'll just take the deep shots and take the big plays and take the chunk plays? Or is it that you'll bet on the efficiency to just move the ball down the field and not have the red zone turnover?
Yeah, if I got to pick, I would ask for the pressure. After that 2021 Dolphins game on Thursday Night Football, where they just ran, the cover zero looks and the Ravens didn't have an answer. whatever they did after that, Lamar just got better and better and better and better against the blitz, and his adjustments and his quick thinking really caught up fast. And the Bengals did it in the first matchup last year. They ran the exact same cover 0, and we just picked them apart the whole time. What's really the blueprint, a better word, I hate people say blueprint, but the model that the Pittsburgh Steelers deployed pretty consistently. They're one of the few teams with KC that's had a lot of success against Baltimore. They've mixed up a lot of cover 2 and cover 3 looks, and they've just kind of sent 4. And I mean, it's kind of a dumb question or a dumb comment. I really like, you should just send 4 because that'll be advantageous. Like, obviously it makes sense, right? If you're able to get home with 4, it's always going to be an advantage. But I do think that benefits because Ravens O-line can be hit or miss. They've had moments where they've been really solid, but they've also had moments where they're just so damn inconsistent that, you go back to that Eagles last year, the Eagles blitzed 3 times that whole game, and we just had no answers for their pass rush. Like, it was embarrassing how bad they got beat in the trenches. And so that's obviously, and it's the same thing with Mahomes. It was always like, you blitz Mahomes, he picks you apart. You sit back, he picks you apart. So why don't we get home with 4? Well, easier said than done.
It's easy. Just get home with 4. That's all you got to do. Just get home
and
with
play
4.
really good coverage on the other side.
Yeah, that's it.
I think what I'd really like to see the Ravens do early in this game, and this is just kind of early season September football, is when you can establish the run and work play action off that, it just really benefits you. I think they can really create some mismatches against the Bills linebackers. I think that's where one of the advantages is, especially with their tight ends. I think this could be a really ironic after last year, but it could be a really big game for Mark Andrews to kind of have some vengeance, or whatever the right word is, back in Buffalo, where he's not going to juke 5 yards backwards in a snow game. So
I thought it was a great choice. Great decision.
That was absurd. Absolutely absurd. That's kind of what I'm hoping for. I've always kind of preferred, ever since Lamar started to answer that call with the blitzes. When they can get 4 and sit back, it's always going to be an advantage. Does Buffalo have the pass rush to do that? Is Joey Bosa going to be able to make an early season impact? We'll see. But I do think Joey Bosa has with his speed to power conversion, that's kind of his bread and butter as a pass rusher, right? It's his ability to attack that inside armpit and then create those leverage points, and then pair that with the attacks on inside hand. I think that's where he could be very successful. And I think Ronnie Stanley and Roger Rosengarten are guys that would struggle with that power conversion versus, they're usually quite good against speed rushers. So we'll see, but that's where not having Ricard can hurt, because they used Ricard a lot against TJ Watt last year, and TJ Watt didn't even have a tackle in that Pittsburgh game. Like, they gave him every look in the box, every look in the book, every chip possible, and it just absolutely was a game breaker against TJ Watt.
Yeah, actually, I like the mix for Buffalo of Bosa and Rousseau, and even Epinesa on being able to set the edge against and defending Lamar, and then trying to keep him somewhat contained and while still rushing. I think that you can get that, but also
compress. If you loop around, he steps up and he's gone. You got to compress, and
they're all good run defenders. You have to have that still ability. But I, for one, Greg, am shocked that the guy that loves offensive line wants to establish the run on offense here early. Shocking.
Those guys want to move forward. They don't want to move backwards. Trust me.
Yeah. That was big shocking news for me. Let's switch it over though to the other side of the ball. Kind of same story a little bit over here, as Greg said, and you had 11 returning starters on the offensive side of the ball. You're returning a majority of your starters on the defensive side of the ball. This is one of the better defensive units in the NFL last year, making the Ravens one of the better overall well-rounded teams. A statistic that I love, DVOA, Aaron Schatz loves the Ravens here the last couple of years. Honestly, almost a historical DVOA team run here recently. And a lot of that has to do with, we'll start on the back end and work our way forward with that secondary. As somebody that prides themselves on defensive back play, and I love adequate play, there's not a lot of adequate play in this defensive secondary. It's all just really good high-end defensive back play. Tell me about this secondary, and tell me about Malik Stark stepping in with this unit and what you expect there.
The big addition of Starks for me is their ability to go into more cover one looks and cover one. There it is. Plug the name to go into those cover one looks and move Kyle Hamilton back up into the box a bit more. I think one of the most underrated storylines from that playoff game last year was like the Buffalo O-line dominated the trenches and they ran the ball quite effectively. James Cook didn't have the most like efficient output in terms of yards, but Davis killed them. Ty Johnson killed them. They both ran for like 6 yards a clip. And those were big runs in the context of that game. So I think what really hurt them was they had to play so many split safety looks because of how bad their back end was to start the year last year. And I think Starks kind of becomes that calming factor in their defensive backfield that gives you a little flexibility to kind of, create those two overhang looks with Marlon Humphrey in one slot and Kyle Hamilton in the other. So I think that's a big piece of it. And then obviously upgrading the other outside corner across from Nate Wiggins from, Brandon Stevens, who struggled mightily last year, to either Awuzie or Alexander. And Jer practiced today. So looks like he's on track to play. I guess we'll know more tomorrow.
I was gonna say, is this a similar situation for you guys of like Trey White and us right now, where it's uncertain here going into week one, and also the level of play you would expect out of a guy that has previously played at an elite level but hasn't done that here as of late?
I compared on Twitter today. I compared getting Jair Alexander to kind of what you guys got in Joey Bosa, where it's kind of a formerly elite player. That just his issue isn't really that he's washed in terms of his skill set or his abilities on the field. It's been his availability. And that's really been Jair's problem the last couple of years. Like if you look at Bosa between 2019 and 21, he was 7th in the NFL in total pressures. He had like a 16.1% pass rush win rate, which is pretty good over that long sample size. And Jari was a shutdown corner and a big turnover machine. So it hasn't been necessarily and what hurts these guys is when they're constantly working back from injury, your play does suffer because you're working back from injury. So you're going through those rehab games where you're just trying to get back to 100%, and it just
can take a full couple of years.
It happened with Marlon Humphrey when he came back from his injury. People were calling him washed, and then he had a very good season last year because he's finally healthy again. So, we'll see what happens there. But what I like what the Ravens did, and what I think gives them a huge advantage, is they went out and they got two formerly top corners that are injury prone. And I think just between Awuzie and Jair Alexander, you're just hoping you get
one of them
out of the combination of the two. It's kind of like a Megazord, whatever that thing is in Power Rangers, where you just kind of morph them together, and it creates one starting outside cornerback. So I think that's kind of what their approach was. Let's go get these two guys and hope that we can get 10 games out of you, 10 games out of you, and hopefully go the distance. So that's what I think the approach was. But I do feel good about the defensive backfield. I think the other big factor in this is, we're into year 2 under Zach Orr, and obviously there was a huge issue when they brought Dean Pease in around week 4 or 5. You knew something was going on. They brought in like one of the most conservative defensive coordinators in NFL history, and then they started just playing soft cover 2. They were almost playing red 2 in the not in the red zone, and so it was like, okay, they're just trying to keep the ball in front of them and really simplified things. And now they got Chuck Pagano in there, which I think is a huge addition because they had a lot of issues with I forget his first name. His last name is Mallory. He was their defensive backs coach that took over for the dude that went to the Titans, who's their defensive coordinator now. His name's escaping me. But so they had all this transition with their coaching staff after 2023, and those early bumps were there. And this was the first year where it's like, we don't have a new OC, we don't have a new DC. There's that kind of continuity. And I think that's really going to benefit the secondary that struggled so much early last year.
Yeah. Before we jump into the front seven, which terrifies me and will probably keep me up the remainder of the week here, but I like to always ask whoever's on the show how I would attack after looking at a unit. And obviously we don't have tape from this team this year, but if just on paper and the research that I'm doing, the attack would be, I do think they're going to want to play a lot of cover 1, like you brought up early on, is testing those boundary corners. Is that what you would do if you were an offensive coordinator? Another team is, hey, Keon Coleman versus Jair Alexander. Let's see where his health is at and see if he's back at elite and just test that early.
Yeah, if they're going to show those looks, push the ball downfield and force them to make the adjustment, right? Because I do think if the Ravens have the approach of, kind of playing Kyle Hamilton down in the box and with all of his versatility, I think that really tightens your box, keeps your run lane, your run defense lanes a lot tighter. And I think it's going to be a lot harder for the Bills to run the football versus last year when they kind of sat in some 2 high looks, some 3 high looks, and even some 4 high looks in that game in Buffalo. It was just one of those things, like it's kind of it was a wet, sloppy game, and they were so focused on preventing a deep pass. It was kind of odd to see.
Because the Bills weren't a great deep passing team either.
No, and they didn't have like the true developed threats on the outside, and really where they killed the pass game was Shakir in the slot, and so it was just one of those things that I kind of struggled with from a game planning perspective. But again, it was that approach that I saw after they brought Dean Pease in, where they went very conservative because they got burnt so many times in the first 10 weeks. I think they were the 32nd ranked pass defense in the first 10 weeks. And then if you took the last 10 weeks or 8 weeks, whatever it was, they were like third. Like it was the complete 180 in terms of their pass defense was absurd. But one of the big issues I see for the Ravens is like the real strength outside of Josh Allen, of course, with this Bills offense is that tackle duo. They're probably top 3 now with Dawkins and Spencer Brown, with Spencer Brown really taking that next step last year. I would say they're like, Maleta and Lane Johnson are probably above them. Other than that, you can't think, Rashawn Slater's hurt now, so him and Alt can't really take. So I mean, they're in that 1-2-3 or that 2-3 spot. So I think that really hurts them. It's going to be hard to generate a pass rush. Van Noy and Owe were wildly inefficient last year as pass rushers. They had good sack numbers, but they weren't. I think they were ranked 33rd and 35th in pass rush win rate amongst edge rushers, which just spoke to their efficiency. And those sack numbers can be deceiving, right? Especially when you look at Owe, he had I think he had 2 or 3 games with 3 sacks each. And so when you're double digits, it sounds great, but when 9 of them came from, 3 or 4 games, it's less impressive. So I think the big thing to watch for Bills fans, a guy that you guys might not be as familiar with, is going to be Mike Green, and what impact can he make early. His preseason film was preseason film, so let's be clear about that, but it was phenomenal. Like, he was doing some very impressive things. He's as advertised. We know why he fell in the draft. It had nothing to do with his skill set. Was kind of a top 15 talent that the Ravens took a personal risk on, and we'll see how that plays out. But that's really what I think the X factor is with this Baltimore Ravens defense. It's, can Mike Green generate that pass rush and make up for Kyle Van Noy and Odafe Owe?
That, and one thing I'm interested in, I don't know if you have insight to this from camp. You talked about it a little bit with them getting a little conservative, but when they did blitz last year, super effective, and they have the personnel. You talk about getting Hamilton up into the box. You talk about these linebackers, and I think generating some of the rush that way. Do you think they're going to lean into a little bit more of an aggressive style of defense, especially when you match it with the actual success that they had when deploying that last year?
It's always hard to tell based on, like, we kind of talked about this without the film, but like they showed a lot of those looks, a lot of slot blitz looks from like Keon Martin had like 2 sacks in the preseason from. It looked very much more in line with 2023 versus 2024. So I do think when you feel a lot better about your back end and being able to hold up and just play sound assignment football in your secondary, you can be a little bit more creative. And I think that also helps them a lot because, Roquan Smith struggled in coverage early last year. It got a lot better in the second half of the season. Trent Simpson was a huge liability, but so was Patrick Queen. And really how they mask that is by weaponizing them as blitzers and making them that kind of 5th rusher. And so, their ability to, mug both A gaps and then, bail one and send the other, those types of looks, that's what created a lot of looks for Travis Jones. It created a lot of looks for Michael Pierce. Obviously Michael Pierce isn't there anymore. But it really created those opportunities. The Ravens might also try some lighter defensive line looks. You got a guy like Tavius Robinson, who's a little buried on the depth chart. He's also a guy from up here in Ontario. He's from Guelph, Ontario. I actually coached against him in 2018. He absolutely destroyed my offensive line. These kids were like 14, 15. But this kid was insane. Like it was like nothing I've ever seen before. But their ability to kind of slide him into a 5 tech and then get another edge rusher side of him, that's something that could go a long way in terms of creating those mismatches, trying to attack Edwards and Torrance and create some of those opportunities. But again, with your ability to show some of those blitz looks and bail or send, it just creates those one-on-one matchups. And that's what I think the Ravens really struggled with doing last year because they didn't trust their back end.
It's almost like pass rush and coverage work together. Weird.
That's it.
Shocking information. So the drill, Cole. Our friends over at William Mattar Law Offices want to know what you expect in this matchup. I will say it's kind of fun. It's the only game on the slate with a 50-point over-under. They're expecting a little bit of a shootout. I think it's one of those where the home team would be favored either direction. It happens to be in Buffalo, so they're a slate favorite. What kind of game do you expect to see, and give us a score prediction?
I think we're going to see a little bit sloppier than I think people are expecting. I'm not expecting the over to hit, as surprising as that may be. I think it's going to be a little sloppier. I've kind of noticed it with week one. I feel a lot better specifically about the Ravens defense early, but the Ravens offense, they haven't played together. They didn't play in the preseason. They always kind of come out a bit clunky. Even in that Kansas City game in week one last year, it really wasn't until the second half where they started clicking and scoring points. So, I do think the Ravens are gonna get their vengeance in this one, and I'm not trying to be a homer. So I'm kind of picking like a 24-17 game where it's kind of what I'd love to see is actually a field goal, because rookie Tyler Loop, that's another storyline to watch. The Ravens have a rookie kicker, but he started off, he really struggled in camp. They had some competition in there for him, and then he just ran away with the job, and his confidence really started to kick. So I'd love to see him kind of get into that opportunity to kick in a big game, especially in the fourth quarter. But I do think we get into that type of game, 24-17 Baltimore, that type of win. I think I really think the run game is going to click a little bit better than it did in the playoff game. And I think that really is what decided that first matchup when they met in week 4 last year.
So let the folks know what's coming up next on Road Graders.
So it's funny. I was laughing when you guys mentioned it earlier, because it's like you go through, a month of preseason where you're turning out like a bunch of film content. And then it's this week. It's like, the hell do I do with my time? So I have a video coming out tomorrow on Joey Bosa. I went through his all of his pass rush snaps from last year. Really wanted to focus on, particularly, I put myself in the mind of like, if I was coaching Roger Rosengarten and Ronnie Stanley, how am I preparing them? So it's kind of, I'm trying to take that unique lens to try and create something a little interesting when it's kind of a quiet week. So, I'm going to be doing that video tomorrow. Thought it was a really interesting approach. I hadn't really watched him closely, just because we haven't played the Chargers a ton lately. So really excited to kind of dive into him. I'm actually going to record it after we're done here, so it will be out tomorrow morning. But like I said, I did a video on Monday, kind of focusing on how Buffalo won in the run game. I thought that was pretty interesting output. So all that's kind of out there, and I'll have a preview on Friday. I'm actually bringing Anthony on from your guys' channel. So I'm excited to have him on and kind of go through some key matchups and dive into the X's and O's with him.
Nice. Can I steal one more question from you, since you brought up the Joey Bosa tape and watching him? I also, this offseason, went through all of his snaps the last couple of years and watched a bunch of it. From a Bills perspective, can you put on your Bills coach's hat? What would you do, having dove into that tape, in terms of load management, and how would you deploy Joey Bosa if you're the Bills and you're trying to play 20 plus games this year?
It's a great question, because it's just so similar to Jar. So it's like, I completely get what kind of the focus is. I'd really focus on him. I don't think they need him on early downs. I think they need to almost use him similar to how they used Vaughn last year, in terms of like a situational
more percentage. Backup. Vaughn was only like 20 something percent, 23%.
Maybe a bit more.
You want to get, yeah,
but like he was at his best when he would line up as like a wide 9, like that wide alignment, 3-point stance, and just kind after it. And really what he did well, like he's got good length and his ability to attack with that inside hand of his right into that armpit, because it would create short corners. Just by the amount of knockbacks he had in that inside hand was shocking to me, because it creates different lanes. You can create that inside lane where you can, turn it into a rip up, arm over, or it can create that short corner by knocking him back, and they're trying to compensate. So I thought that's what I would focus on. I'd focus on getting him out there as a true pass rusher. Let Ebenezer set the edge early on that side, and then have it's kind of what I want to see with the Ravens. Like, I want Mike Green to be that situational pass rusher. Let Kyle Van Noy play early, and then that also manages, and that manages Van Noy's snaps. The guy's like 35, like he manages snaps. He's older than me, and I'm old. Like, my back hurts, so I get where he's coming from.
Hear that?
All right, man. Appreciate it. Always a great time. Looking forward to hopefully a healthy game so that we get a rematch here come January.
Let's do it.
I appreciate you, man. We'll talk soon, Cole. Always a pleasure to have Cole on. He's fantastic. For anybody that doesn't, he does awesome line breakdowns, great draft work, all kinds of good stuff beyond just being unfortunately, regrettably, a Ravens fan. But other than that, he's great.
Like I said, previewing it last week, if there was a cover one Baltimore, it would be him running it for us. He's cut of the same cloth.
Yeah. Cole's good people. All right, man. I can't believe. Right? Yeah, I can't believe it's here. So for anybody who has any questions for the game, get them in here. We will talk through that what's brewing here with fantastic producer Colin Ritchie here afterwards. But right now, I think we got to put ourselves out there. I'll lead off. I'll let you follow up. Again, we have the Bills are favored by 1.5. Vegas is predicting it's not even a real thing, like 26-24 isn't a real score, 27-25, that kind of thing. A 27-24 game is the right cover of what they're saying, but I kind of agree with Cole. I think there's probably little bit of rust getting knocked off. Neither of these quarterbacks played at all. Neither of these offenses played together. I think that there's probably a bit more to work through, probably a couple drives that end up in field goals that we wouldn't prefer, a couple of things like that go that way, and I think maybe we get one more field goal at home, so I'm going to go 23-20 Buffalo. I think we both score 2 touchdowns. Maybe we get a third field goal instead of a second. I won't be shocked if Baltimore wins. Obviously, they've gotten us in the regular season before. I think that I'm not sure about our run defense. That Derrick Henry still terrifies me. I think that our pass defense matches up okay because they don't have like crazy speedsters that really kind of roast us in some of the other situations. So I'm okay with a little bit of that, but Lamar on the move and Derrick Henry with a head of steam still terrifies me. So I'm not going to outright call for Baltimore to win or predict it, but I'm not going to be shocked. These are 2 great teams. And unfortunately, the winner of this, besides maybe getting the tiebreaker for home field advantage, won't really make much of a difference on who wins in the playoffs. It's going to come down to probably these teams having to match up again in January. Yeah,
I don't love this. I said it at the top of the show. One, I hate week 1 every single year.
Week 1 is a liar.
It's a super liar. Weird, wonky things happen. Specifically, I've seen so many primetime weird week 1 games, so I'm already sick to my stomach about whatever odd thing's going to happen that's going to piss us all off. But even without all the week 1 stuff, I do think early I'm a little bit buying into the narrative that they want it more. Not that the Bills don't want it. I don't think it's that. I just think, like Cole said, these teams are really built for January. But the Ravens have had more of a bulletin board material to hang all season with a bullseye on the Buffalo Bills. So if you're a Ravens player, that was obviously, we talked about it, almost all of them were on that roster last year. If you're not up for this game, which game are you going to get up for? I mean, the Bills don't have that same thing. And I think those things matter, but also this isn't necessarily a great matchup for the Bills, especially early in the season when you're working out some kinks. I think Sean McDermott today was very kind of like pumping brakes a little bit of like, hey, we're getting into the season. We're going to hit a stretch at some point this season. Like we always do, you always hit something kind of like there's going to be some growth periods. I think we're going to experience some of that early against a dynamic offense like this. I've got it. I think I'm going to say 24-20 Ravens. I think it doesn't hit over 50. I think you guys are both right too. It might be something that's like a real ugly game going into halftime, and then Josh and Lamar settle in a little bit. I could see both kind of pushing. It's MVP versus MVP. There's going to be a lot of hype, a lot of guts.
I think TP's spot on. I don't love how they match up against us, but we have Josh, and I'll take my chances anytime.
It's not even Josh needs his cape. The defense has to do what they did the last time, which is create 3 turnovers and for like you got to create some opportunities, and Lamar's definitely put it out there for them to do, and I think that those opportunities will be present to them in this game. I think both quarterbacks will put some balls out there for people to get, but honestly, I'm totally fine if the Ravens are to the Bills, which the Bills are to the Chiefs, which is like
they get us in the regular season,
but if we keep being in the playoffs, I don't really care. And that's kind of where I'm at with this matchup. If you're going to drop in early, I can talk myself into this, Greg, where it was week 1. Josh didn't play. They lost a close one. Maybe something wonky happened. I can sort all that out in my brain. The only thing I don't want is come out and get embarrassed week 1 where you get wiped off the field. That's not going to be fun. But I think if they hang in this and it's competitive, I can talk myself into, hey, they lost to a really good football team. It's week 1. That's weird. Get back on and let's win another 13.
I love it.
Yeah, man.
All right. Without further ado, let's bring on our favorite producer, Mr. Colin Ritchie, talk through on our friends over at Southern Tier and with the questions in the chat. What's brewing?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good, man. How you doing?
Doing well.
So we had Mickey M very adamant in the chat. He posted this question a couple of times, wanted to get your guys' take on it. What player do you think will be the X factor on both sides of the ball in this game?
I've got one on defense. So I'm gonna go. I think that it'd be easy. We could just pick Bosa, like what Cole had brought up here. I'm gonna say TJ Sanders. In that I think Cole brought up that the guards are where you can beat them. I think we need Ed to have a big game, but I think historically we've seen the drop off when we've taken the starters out and how big of a difference there is. And now I think we need to see, is that investment ready to pay off here, that we, again, drafted 3 defensive linemen, signed 3 defensive linemen. Like we need to see some of that be ready to contribute here. So I'd love for Bosa to be the answer, but I'll go a little bit on the outside and say I'd like to see some flashes or a big play when it matters from TJ Sanders.
I am going to go with Matt Milano specifically. Well, so first of all, this question, are we answering for both offense and defense when he says
sure.
on both sides of the ball?
I got an offense one.
Okay.
After you're done.
On defense, I'm going to go with Matt Milano. I think, we haven't seen him back at a fully healthy clip. I think he was working towards that as we saw the last of him last year. The brief moments I saw at training camp, got me very excited. I pumped my own brakes on like, hey, we may never see him back to where he was. And I still don't know if we will.
Even that one sideline rep in the preseason game.
Yeah, man. And if he is back to even any semblance of where he was with Terrell Bernard, I think that's a really special dynamic linebacker unit that the Bills can do more of what they want with, especially in coverage and stuff. So I'm excited. And I think that he's excited to show the NFL a little bit here that he's back and that athleticism is back for him. So I'm going there. And then I'll go quick offensively. I think I'm going to say, if healthy, we saw him pop up on the injury report here this week, but I think I said it, test this outside. I think it could be a big key on Coleman where everybody gets really excited about his low fantasy value when Josh hits him for a couple touchdowns and maybe a big shot or two, and he gets some nice fantasy points here this week.
Yeah, he was going to be my answer as well. He's the kind of guy that we need to be. They have a really talented secondary, so you're going to need some guys to win who are open when they're not open. You need a guy to win when there is sticky coverage, but can go up over top and come down with the ball even when they have good position. I trust Shakir's going to get his yards after the catch. We're going to find soft spots in the zone for Knox and Kincaid. Those things will work their way out. Maybe we get a little sneaky play from Josh Palmer as an introduction, but I think having a guy who can go up and win a big important ball in the red zone on a big third down, I think we need to see Keon Coleman's ready to do that. And the reason I've been optimistic is it looks like Josh trusts him. He's been putting him in those positions. I want to see that payoff here in the real games. What's another one, Colin?
Yeah, we just had a question come in from Joey Gonzalez. Over under 6 blitzes from our defense in this game. We saw a lot of man blitzes against Baltimore in the divisional round in the playoffs. Do they show their hand that early in week 1 this year?
So my heart says yes. My brain says no. I want the answer to be yes. And I want the answer to be, I talked about this in the last show. There's enough data out there that when you send extra pressure, send a 6th guy because you need to get home. And I think that's even more important with a guy like Lamar. You can't depend on one-on-one open field athleticism when the target is Lamar Jackson. So if you want to get him down on the ground, you have to send more people than they have protection for, so that you have additional help coming that way. So it has to get home quick, and it has to really force him into those positions. So I hope the answer is more than 6 times, and I hope when we do it, it's bringing significant pressure. My brain says that matters more in the playoffs than it does in a regular season game. So I have a feeling we're in for more frustrating bend but don't break vanilla stuff, because I think we're going to see plenty of that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be under for this one. Just again, early, right, in the season. Not saying the Bills aren't going to give all their stuff, but I think they're not going to come out right away. Especially, I think that they're probably also a little bit unsure of Cole Bishop with the kind of offseason he has had. Even though there's confidence in him and they believe in him, I think that uncertainty on the back end, the Trey White injury, whether or not he's going to play, who we have a question coming up here on Ingram, who's going to be playing there, similar to what Cole said. Like, yeah, I'd like to see them get more aggressive, but do they trust in the back end to hold up on that aggression?
Let's get one more here in.
Yeah, how about we address some salary cap maneuvers that the Bills did today? They restructured Deion Dawkins' deal. Bills Mafia 056 was asking, how do we turn that $8 million we just created into Micah Parsons? Obviously, he's a Green Bay Packer now, but what does that $8 million mean for the Bills?
I would love to give people glimmers of hope. Obviously, I've been saying for a couple months now that move was a formality. We had to restructure Deion Dawkins just to function in the regular season here. I even had brought up, we had kind of been crossing our fingers. We'd see like a Connor McGovern extension or something to even create a little bit more space. We had to do that move just to operate during the season. Now, I will say any of the moves that we do, I've not been shy about my desire for Jabril Peppers to fill that open roster spot that we'll get with Dwayne Carter's injury here. Any of those moves, Jabril Peppers is just like bringing back Gabe Davis. He has offset language where he's going to get like $4.3 million from the Patriots, regardless of how much we send. So unless the team's going to give him like $6 million in cash, it doesn't really matter. Most of the offers he's going to get, matter of fact, I would guess that he has, I won't go crazy, a half dozen minimum contract offers right now around the league. And he's trying to figure out, where am I going to be able to play to set myself up for one more contract next spring? Yeah. So my guess is he's weighing multiple minimum offers, because I don't think anyone's going to offer him $5 million. And if you don't offer him more than the guarantee from the Patriots, you might as well offer the minimum and let the Patriots pay the difference. Just like Gabe Davis is getting $11 million from the Jaguars, no matter how much we pay him. So he doesn't mind sitting on our practice squad because he's getting $11 million this year, no matter what. So I think those are the kind of moves we'd be looking at. I don't think, regardless of how much I would love some big splash move here, even one of the trades that I had mentioned before, going to the Falcons to bring in a safety that, they didn't anticipate drafting a 3rd and a 4th round safety when the draft came. So when they went through and actually, in the offseason had signed Jordan Fuller, coming over. He had been really good with the Rams, had an iffy season with Carolina. He was signed there to start. Well, then they drafted Xavier Watson, Billy Bowman. The reason I liked him is he's got a $1 million salary. So there's no money to add. Those would be the kind of things around the fringes. I would say that, short of a surprise, I don't even think Jabril Peppers is that likely, but that would be by far the biggest thing we would get. It's way more likely that we do, probably a guy who got released previously and now gets added back. That's way more likely that we get one of those kind of guys added to the roster.
Yes, I agree with everything.
Random parades.
Yeah, we freed up no money. There's still ways to free up money. I think the Bills.
If some awesome opportunity presented itself, every team can figure something out if they want to.
Yes.
It's not very likely.
Yes, I think the Bills are pretty content at this point going into the season with the roster that they have, but never rule out Brandon Beane's ability to make a trade if something starts to brew here this year. But I don't know. Any of the guys that are out there now, I think it would take early injuries at this point for them to be like, okay, Jabril, now we're serious, or whoever it is that's out there that wasn't part of this roster.
Rightfully, to Jabril Peppers, he probably wants to come in and play, not be like,
correct.
Hey,
he doesn't want to be Mike Edwards last year.
You can also be an insurance policy guy who might play. It's that kind of situation. Or if God forbid, right off the bat, we have another Nico Collins play and Cole Bishop's lost in coverage and we get beat over the top and Zay Flowers is running down the field. Maybe next Tuesday we make a phone call.
If that happens,
to
that comes to fruition and we have to cut this and post it on the internet. But I'm not going to join the post-game show.
Yeah.
Straight up. I'm going to boycott the post-game show. If that
I'll be there. Matter of fact, so I guess as we're wrapping up here now, I will be traveling the next couple of weeks, and my travel starts early. I have to fly out for my meeting. I have a meeting that starts first thing Monday morning, so I have to be in Atlanta already. So I've researched like the best sports bars to go to around Atlanta where I can go watch games, but not during the 8:00 game. So I'm going to go watch like the full slate in this awesome sports bar with a bajillion TVs.
Nice.
But then I'm going to be in the hotel room for Sunday Night Football and doing the post game show from my laptop there. So not the first time we pulled it off before, but it's going to be a late Sunday night doing the show from a laptop in a hotel room.
Yeah, and on that point, just make sure if you are here and joining us that you're liking, subscribing, doing all that stuff so you can join us for the post game shows immediately following games. I hope you're excited for that to jump on with us for some late nights this year, Colin.
Sorry for what you signed up for here. This is the tough part now.
I mean, at this stage in the Bills dynasty, if you want to call it, where they're winning 11, 12, 13 games a year, that's going to be 11, 12, 13 post games where we're going to be in a great mood. And there's only going to be 3 or 4 this year, hopefully, where we're not in such a good mood.
I like it. I'd like 2. I'd look a 15-2 run.
Yeah, I'd take 1 or even 0, but 2 works too.
I can live with that.
Yeah, we know. We could bring in our media correspondent.
Buffalo Bills going undefeated, and we're going to the Super Bowl. Yeah,
I mean, can't argue with that kind of analysis.
Guy's right. At some point, he's going to be right.
One of these days.
All right.
Well, on behalf of everybody here, this has been great. You guys in the chat have been awesome. Really engaged here tonight. Make sure to check out Cole's work. Make sure you're checking out everything that he has going on over at Road Graders. Like Aaron said, give us a like, give us a rating, give us a review. It really goes a long ways. If you have a good time talking with us, just tell a friend, tell a neighbor, tell somebody while you're getting coffee, getting gas, tell a family member. That goes a long ways. It's the best compliment you can give us is just telling other people about the show and sharing what we're doing, all the hard work we put in for you guys. Appreciate everybody jumping in there. But on behalf of our fantastic producer, Colin Ritchie, and my partner in crime, Aaron Quinn, I am Greg Tompsett. You've been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we are out.